You're not broke because you spend too much, and you're not terrified about the future because you didn't work hard enough. You're terrified because the system was never actually designed for you to win. Think about it. It's the paralyzing, unspoken fear that every single pre-retiree harbors in the dead of night. That gut-wrenching thought that, despite a literal lifetime of labor, of doing everything exactly right, you might actually outlive your life savings. Welcome to USA Rift. Today, we are exposing the complex, hidden mechanics of decumulation. We're going to show you exactly why the retirement rules you've been taught your entire life are fundamentally broken. The game is rigged by outdated math. If you want to finally understand the hidden truths of wealth and how this system really operates, subscribe to the channel right now, like this explainer, and comment down below with what you thought. Also, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. Let's dismantle the deception. So what if the absolute cornerstone of your entire retirement plan is built on a lie? For decades now, you've been sold a highly rigid, almost religious financial dogma. The financial industry, they've trained you like Pavlov's dog to hit a magic number, apply a static mathematical formula, and simply walk away assuming you are perfectly safe forever. But here is the uncomfortable truth. This system wasn't designed for the complex, chaotic reality of modern volatile markets. Not at all. It was designed to sell you a feeling of certainty where, frankly, absolutely none exists. Today, we're looking at the cold, hard, unforgiving math of decumulation. This is that critical, terrifying phase of life where you stop accumulating capital and you actually have to begin spending your wealth. The consequences of misunderstanding this transition, they are immense. It's not just about a few dollars here or there. It is literally the absolute deciding factor between who lives their final decades in total abundance and who is slowly, agonizingly crushed by invisible economic forces they never even saw coming. The absolute root of this entire problem comes down to one single tiny number, 4%. It is the golden calf of the modern financial planning industry. Introduced way back in 1994 by a financial planner named Bengen, the 4% rule almost instantly became unquestionable gospel. The rule stated that you could safely withdraw exactly 4% of your portfolio in year one, adjust that exact dollar amount for inflation every single year after that, and mathematically guarantee you would never run out of money over a 30-year period. Sounds great, right? But here is the critical, massive detail hidden deep in the fine print. Bengen's original research was anchored to a historical anomaly. It was built specifically around the tragic cohort of retirees who stopped working in October of 1968. Think about that. Those specific individuals walked straight into a macroeconomic perfect storm. Severe equity bear markets paired with historically high, persistent inflation that ravaged the entire 1970s. The financial industry took this extreme, doomsday, worst-case survival baseline and they mistakenly weaponized it into a universal, rigid law for everyone. A law that completely ignores the reality of the specific economic world you are actually retiring into today. Now we need to talk about the true hidden killer of wealth. It's called sequence of returns risk. This is the ultimate vulnerability of your wealth to the specific order of your investment returns, particularly in those hypercritical years right around your actual retirement date. The system, it wants you to believe that average, long-term returns are all that matter. Just write it out, they say. That is a deeply dangerous illusion. The market environment on the exact day you stop working practically dictates your financial survival. If you experience poor market returns early in your retirement, while you are simultaneously pulling money out to pay your everyday bills, your portfolio suffers permanent compounding damage. It's irreversible. You are literally forced to sell shares at rock bottom, basement prices, just to buy groceries or pay for electricity. And once you sell those shares, they're gone forever. Your portfolio can never fully recover its growth engine, even when the market inevitably bounces back years later. You are essentially playing a high-stakes game of chance with the calendar, and the system acts like it's a perfectly normal, safe way to manage a lifetime of hard-earned wealth. To really grasp how insane this is, look at the stark, brutal contrast between two identical retirees. Let's imagine they saved the exact same amount of money, down to the penny. They invested in the exact same standard 60-40 portfolio. They used the exact same rigid withdrawal strategy. The only difference? The date they handed in their resignation letter to their boss. The 1982 retiree walked into a financial paradise. Stocks were incredibly cheap after years of being beaten down. Bond yields were surging well over 10% because the Federal Reserve had just aggressively crushed inflation. This retiree accidentally accumulated massive generational wealth without even trying. They effortlessly rode one of the greatest bull markets in human history. Now, consider the year 2000 retiree. They retired at the absolute peak of the dot-com tech bubble. The Shiller KP ratio was near one of its highest readings in U.S. history, meaning stocks were priced for absolute perfection, while fixed income yields were just mediocre. This retiree stepped off a cliff into a lost decade of flat markets and 2 brutal consecutive crashes. Their portfolio was hollowed out from the inside. And here's the kicker, they did absolutely nothing wrong. They followed all the rules. But these structural mechanics of the market punished them anyway. The exact same plan created a dynasty for one person and borderline poverty for the other. The absolute crucial point we have to understand right now is that the quote-unquote safe number is always moving. When forward-looking researchers at Morningstar apply current capital market assumptions, rather than just relying on backward-looking historical hindsight, you can see exactly how the safe withdrawal rate violently fluctuates based on the economic regime of that exact moment. Let's look at the data. In late 2021, equity valuations were near historic highs, inflation was accelerating rapidly, and bond yields were compressed to near zero. Because of that reality, the structurally safe withdrawal rate plummeted to a terrifying 3.3%. Fast forward just one single year to late 2022. Stocks and bonds both crashed simultaneously, causing massive mainstream panic. Yet, because stock valuations compressed and fixed income yields spiked dramatically, the forward-looking math actually improved. The safe rate jumped up to 3.8%. By late 2023, with moderating inflation, it hit 4.0%, only to fall right back down to 3.7% in 2024 as stocks got expensive once again. The math of wealth is not a static spreadsheet you can just set and forget. It is a live-in, breathing mechanism, heavily dependent on current valuations and yields. If your retirement plan doesn't dynamically adapt to these constantly shifting realities, you are literally flying blind into a storm. And this brings us to a profound, deeply hidden psychological trap that nobody in the industry wants to talk about. Are you running out of money, or are you just hoarding millions in absolute fear? The rigid 4% rule forces you into one of 2 tragic outcomes. In the extremely rare worst-case scenario, blindly taking 4% as your portfolio burns to the ground will drive you into absolute financial ruin. But the other side of the coin is equally devastating and honestly far more common. Studies consistently show that in more than 2/3 of historical scenarios, a retiree using a strict static 4% rule finishes a 30-year retirement with more than double their starting principal in real terms. Half the time, they finish with nearly triple. Think about the gravity of what that actually means for a second. It means you needlessly suppressed your entire life. You denied yourself the trips, the experiences, the incredible generosity to your family that you could have easily afforded, all out of a phantom fear of going broke. You hoarded wealth while you still had the youth and the physical health to actually enjoy it, only to leave behind a massive accidental legacy to heirs or institutions. And guess what? The system heavily profits off this fear. It keeps your capital locked safely inside their investment accounts, generating massive fees for them year after year, instead of being deployed for your life's actual enjoyment. To break free from this matrix, we have to completely shift the narrative away from spreadsheets and back to actual human reality. Specifically, what researcher David Blanchett brilliantly calls the retirement spending smile. For decades, the financial industry modeled retirement as a perfectly flat, horizontal line. They blindly assumed you would spend the exact same inflation-adjusted dollar amount at age 65 as you would at age 94. But come on, that concept is fundamentally detached from human biology and actual human behavior. You don't live your life on a linear spreadsheet. Retirement actually happens in very distinct physiological phases. First, you have the go-go years, from roughly age 65 to 75. You are highly active. You travel the world, you buy the RV, you spoil the grandkids, your discretionary spending is at its absolute peak. Then, you inevitably transition into the slow-go years, from roughly 75 to 85. You settle into more comfortable routines, you stay closer to home. Because of this, your real, inflation-adjusted spending naturally and predictably drops. Finally, you enter the no-go years, age 85 and beyond. Your physical mobility significantly decreases, though rising healthcare and long-term care costs start to take the overall expenditure curve back up, completing that distinct U-shape or smile. So what happens when you actually map the math of wealth to the biological reality of the human life cycle? Everything changes. 20%. By analyzing deep, longitudinal household consumption data and actually planning for this natural, biological decline in your real spending during those middle years of retirement, rather than arbitrarily forcing a flat line, the math shifts dramatically in your favor. Research indicates that by embracing this spending smile, you could safely begin your retirement needing up to 20% less accumulated wealth. Let that sink in for a moment. 20% less. Blanchett's models show that a household starting with a $100,000 budget will naturally see their real expenditures decline to around $74,000 by age 84. That is a massive 26% drop in real spending. When you adapt your withdrawal strategy to how human beings actually consume resources as they age, the heavy, suffocating chains of oversaving are completely broken. Do you realize what that represents? That represents actual years of your life given back to you, years you don't have to spend grinding away at a desk out of misplaced fear. But listen, to execute this safely and effectively, you cannot just rely on blind hope. Hope is not a financial strategy. You need a highly structured, impenetrable defense system. Enter the Guardrail framework. This is the structural solution that the ultra-wealthy use to protect and enjoy their assets. It's a dynamic decumulation system that doesn't arrogantly try to predict the future with a crystal ball, but instead reacts systematically to what the market actually delivers in real time. Let's break down exactly how these Geitenklinger risk-based guardrails actually work in the real world. Step 1, you set your initial withdrawal rate based on today's specific market valuations and yields, not some ghost metric from 1968. Step 2, if the market goes on a massive bull run and your portfolio balance surges, your withdrawal rate drops below a certain mathematical threshold. You hit your upper guardrail. The system triggers a calculated action. You literally take a pay raise. You might increase your spending by 10%, permanently allowing you to enjoy the wealth the market generated without an ounce of guilt. But step 3 is where the true bulletproof protection lies. If the market crashes and your portfolio shrinks, your effective withdrawal rate naturally spikes. You hit your lower guardrail. The system automatically triggers a measured belt tightening. If you were spending $10,000 a month, a targeted adjustment might drop you down to maybe $9,600. Notice what's happening here. It is not a catastrophic, life-altering cliff where you're suddenly eating cat food. It is just a small, highly measured step back. This lower guardrail is your ultimate mathematical protection against sequence of returns risk. By being willing to give up just a little bit of spending during the dark times, you mathematically guarantee you will never ever run out of money. But those basic guardrails, that's just the baseline. Institutional planners use highly advanced structural enhancements to preserve wealth. First, they implement Michael Kitz's ratcheting rule, which scientifically dictates exactly how aggressively you can increase your income when your portfolio balance grows by 50% above its starting value. Second, they maintain highly dedicated cash reserves to ride out short-term volatility without ever panic selling. But the most critical advancement, the real secret weapon, is utilizing buffer assets. Buffer assets are non-correlated pools of liquidity that exist completely outside your stock portfolio, things like a home equity line of credit, a reverse mortgage, or cash value life insurance. Why do these matter so much? Because if the stock market crashes by 30% in your second year of retirement, you execute a predefined defensive maneuver. You completely pause your core equity sales. You stop selling your deeply depressed stocks. Instead, you draw your living expenses strictly from your buffer assets. You let the core portfolio heal undisturbed. This single, calculated maneuver neutralizes the deadly sequence of returns risk entirely. It prevents the forced liquidation of your future, allowing you to fully participate in the eventual, inevitable market recovery. The 4% rule never adjusts. Real clients need a spending strategy that responds to what actually happens. This quote right here, it represents a complete and total shattering of the old financial paradigm. The traditional system wanted you docile. It wanted you obediently following a static rule that kept your capital trapped. But the reality is, your life is incredibly dynamic. Your health changes, your passions evolve, inflation spikes unpredictably, and markets constantly crash and soar. A static, inflexible spreadsheet cannot possibly protect you from a dynamic, unpredictable world. It just can't. You must transition away from a simplistic withdrawal rate to a holistic risk management framework. You need a living system that continuously monitors market valuations, your own mortality, complex taxes, and real-world inflation. You have to demand a system that adapts to reality, because the alternative is leaving your ultimate fate to the cold, unfeeling whims of the financial machine. And so we arrive at the ultimate truth of decumulation. The math of wealth is always moving. You just have to move with it. The financial system was never designed to give you absolute clarity. Honestly, it was just designed to sell you a product. But now you see the gears turning behind the curtain. You understand that true safety is not found in some rigid historical percentage, but in calculated structural flexibility. You hold the power to dictate your own financial reality. You have the power to refuse the psychological trap of hoarding your life away and to systematically shield yourself from the market's hidden dangers. The knowledge is in your hands now. The rules of the game have fundamentally changed. So, are you still going to play by the old ones? Thank you for watching USA Rift. If this explainer exposed a truth you needed to hear, subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below with your thoughts. To help us continue pulling back the curtain on how the system really works, please consider supporting us by becoming a channel member. Until next time, stay focused and stay awake.